One of the most crucial aspects in startup is the business model, and especially the business model canvas. This is still a very utilized technique, and sometimes it has also been utilized in a wrong way. So why we are still adopting this? So the business model canvas can of course be used in a, let's say, shallow way that will not really grasp the foundational aspect, the foundational economics of a business. However, if we use it right, if we use the business model canvas in the right way, we are actually able to fully understand with sufficient depth the economics behind a business. And that's why the business model canvas is still valuable. And this is what we will analyze in the lecture, in this video lecture, to use the business model canvas as a technique to fully understand the fundamentals of a company. Many people will think that the business model canvas is a tool that you can utilize to present to investors how your business works. This is surely a purpose of a business model canvas, but it's not the only purpose. A business model canvas is also a way to tell a story, a way to tell the story of your startup venture. The stories that you tell with your business model will answer very crucial questions. For example, who is the customer? What does the customer value? The business model canvas also answers the fundamental questions every manager must ask. How do we make money in this business? What is the underlying economic logic that explains how we can deliver value to customers at an appropriate cost? So these are some of the thoughts by John Magretta on business model canvas. We will reference a few more academics, including Clayton Christensen, Michael Porter, and so on, throughout the video lecture. So without further ado, now let's dive into the learning outcome of today's video. So first, describe the business model. Then we will explore business model innovation. We will use Dell as a case, but there are many examples of business model innovation. Then we will discuss why it's important to have a clearly articulated business model. Furthermore, we are also going to dive into another model, which is the value chain analysis, which was first created by Michael Porter. The value chain analysis can help define our business model. So what we will learn about the value chain analysis is the concept of a value chain analysis, and then the analysis itself, how we can apply the value chain analysis. So let's now visualize the business model. So the business model canvas consists of these key pillars. So we see key partnerships, key activities, key scope of the organization, the key resources utilized by the organization, the value proposition, the relationship with the customer, with the market, the value you are delivering to your customers and how you are delivering it and how you relate with your customers. Channels means how you reach out to your customers, for example, through distribution channels and so on. Customer segmentation and market segmentation. And then the two foundational parts, which are the cost structure of your organization and the revenue generation model, how you monetize the business. So let's introduce now the definition of a model. A model is a plan or a diagram which you use to describe some phenomenon. Specifically in the case of a business model is this type of plan or diagram which will tell you how a company competes, how a company deploys resources, assets, people, branding, and so on, how the company structure relationship, for example, with partners, with suppliers, with strategic allies, and so on. How the company create a customer touch point to be in touch with the customers, to be related to the customers. And of course, how the company creates value for the customers, but in a way also to create value, profit for the company itself. So all the activities, all the scope of work that the company is covering will be defined by the business model canvas. There are 3 foundational principles which help us grasp better the theory behind the business model canvas. The first is the customer value proposition, or CVP. The second is the profit formula. And the third is key resources and key processes. As you can see, all these 3 principles are deeply connected to the business model. What is the customer value proposition? So if we follow the theory by Clayton Christensen, we can define the customer value proposition as the way to help customer get a job done. So here the idea, according to Clayton Christensen theory, is that a way to look at a company is that a company is hired by the customers to solve a pain point. It's hired by customers to get a job done. So you can think of any company basically being just hired by customers to get a job done. Whilst I'm recording this video, I'm using a green screen, I'm using a tripod, I'm using a smartphone for filming, a smartphone for voice recording, I'm using my laptop for the slides. So to an extent, we can give these examples that I hired all these companies. I hired Apple, Lenovo, the tripod company, which I now forgot the name, and so on. I hired all of them to get a job done, which is to film this video lecture. So this is the way to look at the customer value proposition. Are all these products, my tripod, my 2 smartphones, the laptop, the green screen, are they helping me to get this video done or not? Customer value proposition. So what we can learn here is that the more important the job is, in my case, make a video, but when you buy a car, the job will be more important. Traveling, commuting to work every single day, 365 days a year. Or when you buy a house will be even more important, right? So the more important the job, and at the same time, the lower the level of satisfaction with other companies, your competitors, attempt to solve this problem, to get the job done. And at the same time, if your solution is better and cheaper than your competitors, so then in this case, your customer value proposition is stronger, is more powerful. So you need to consider the competitive landscape, but also the features of your solution and whether your solution is cheaper. At the end of the day, most innovation will democratize product, services, and so on. So being cheaper is a key proposition when you want to innovate. So this is the customer value proposition. Second concept is the profit formula. So profit formula is basically how we create value for us, whilst we also create value to our customer. And there are 4 essential components of our profit formula. Components are revenues, cost structure, which we identify in the business model canvas I showed you earlier, the margins and resource velocity. So how you deploy your resources, how fast you deploy your resources. So how you determine your profit formula. So you need to work backwards. So there are basically two main alternatives when you want to define your profit formula. So one is you start with a price of lower cost competitors that are delivering the customer value proposition. And then by setting this as a standard, so the price by your competitors, then you determine your cost structure. This is one way. The second way is that you start internally. So you start from your cost structure internally, then you add on top the margins to monetize, to create profits for your organization, and then this will lead to your profit formula. The third element, the third principle is key resources and key processes. So key resources are all the assets that you need to deliver your CVP, your customer value proposition. So it could be the people, could be the technology, could be facilities, the equipment, distribution channels, branding, and so on. And then the other element is the processes. So processes can be operational processes, can also be managerial capabilities of your organization. And these should be repeatable, meaning you can do this again and again. And this will lead to scalability of your business. Manufacturing, customer service, sales, and marketing will all be under the key processes. Let's now move to examine some cases of business model, and specifically we give you the example of Dell as an innovative business model. So here we see how understanding the economic logic of a business model than the business model that you can find in industry. So by understanding this, then you can create your own business model, and your own business model can capitalize on existing experience in the industry, but then you can innovate. And so by innovating the business model, you can achieve a better CVP, a better customer value proposition, a better profit formula with stronger key activities, key processes, and key resources. So what Dell did was to bring the business model beyond boundaries. And Dell did this with a cooperation with suppliers, but also with customers and many other stakeholders in the industry. So here you can see the difference between traditional PC manufacturer business model and Dell business model. So traditional manufacturer business model, for example, HP or IBM, so they follow this typical management process. So they forecast the demand, they order subcomponents from their suppliers, they produce in-house basic components, then they did the assembly of a PC, they store the PC in their warehouse, then they shipped the PC to retailers, and then retailers were tasked with selling the PC to consumers, and of course, the PC would have been on the shelf of retailers until consumers would have bought it. What Dell did was to change the relation with the market, the touch point with customers. Customers place an order via phone or via internet, different touch point. So here we are on like the customer relation, sales and marketing processes. But at the same time, Dell also innovated in manufacturing processes, internal capabilities of organization. So instead of producing the laptop in-house, they contacted contract manufacturers, so companies that were not Dell. like partners of Dell to produce all the components for the PC. And what Dell does is only the final assembly. So everything is produced by suppliers and Dell does only the final assembly. And of course, they keep a customer touch point, which is fundamental to be close to the customer. And they also cut out the channels. So instead of using a very long channel with distributors, retailers, and so on, they also shipped their laptops directly to the customers via UPS, FedEx, and so on. So here is a way to see that the value creation of Dell was much shorter of traditional computer manufacturers, and this resulted in a better profit formula compared to other computers manufacturers. A better profit formula with higher margins, lower cost structure, faster resource velocity, and eventually also higher revenues. So here I added as a bonus also an example of a business model canvas. This is done on an auto part maker. So this is just for you to revise and to learn more how you can structure the business model canvas, how you can utilize this to make an analysis of a business. We have mentioned earlier that a business model canvas must be clearly articulated. So business model canvas looks easy to prepare, but on the contrary, is very challenging to make a good business model canvas. Why so? Because if the business model canvas is not deep enough, is not comprehensive enough, does not understand the basic of the industry and the business, so then the business model canvas is not telling any meaningful story. And the business model canvas is also not helping us to articulate how the business works and whether the business makes sense. The business model canvas is a way for stakeholders to understand whether a business makes sense or not. There are many types of business models. So we can talk about diversity of business models. And this is the cool thing about business models. So there is no one size fits all. There are multiple types of business models. As I show you, there are ways to innovate the business model, which means that a business model might not exist today, but will exist tomorrow. I'm sure there will be a lot of emerging business model coming from Web3, from further adoption of blockchain, NFT, and so on. Similarly, in the past 15, 20 years, we have seen a very rapid increase in adoption of platform business model. We even define the past 20 years as a platformization of economy. So companies adding platforms in their business model. Typical example is Apple adding a platform in their business model. We have seen platforms emerging and winning in their industries, reshaping strategy rules and competition rules. So there is no standard business model. Business model evolves, business model change. We will see a lot of innovation in business model also in future. So now the final part of the lecture on value chain, how value chain relates to business model. So the value chain helps us understand what is a core competence. Each firm does have unique core competence or maybe few core competences. A core competence is essentially an activity that a firm performs better than the competitors. And at the same time, competitors struggle to perform this activity and to reach the same level of the firm. What is the core competency of Apple? Or what is the core competency of Toyota? So these are two landmark firms, famous firms, and we do have different core competencies. We actually even see that the core competencies evolved or even changed over times. Let's take the example of Apple. The core competence of Apple originally was in technology, was in innovation, was in R&D. And that eventually evolved to become a core competence also in marketing, branding. And now we might have some challenging time if we need to pick one. Is Apple core competence on technology innovation? Is Apple core competence on branding because they created an extremely powerful brand? We are a consumer electronic company, but they adopted many strategies coming right out of a playbook of fashion brands, luxury fashion brands. And then there is a less well-known area of Apple, but this also enabled Apple to sustain their incredible growth market capitalization over the past 20 years. And this is supply chain management. Apple does not produce basically anything in-house. They have a very extensive supply chain with a main contractor that is Foxconn from Taiwan, and then a lot of other subcontractors working with Foxconn. So this also enabled Apple to reduce their cost structure and increase margins, resource velocity, and revenues. Again, we got back to the main points of our profit formula. Toyota is famous for many key activities, key processes in manufacturing. There is the Toyota production system, Toyota quality system. So we even basically name standards in manufacturing, how to produce efficiently and effectively, how to constantly increase quality. So Toyota production system is still a landmark. But at the same time, Toyota was also able to achieve huge success in branding marketing. Consider, for instance, the case of a new brand creation, which was Lexus. So Toyota was able to create a very excellent product competing against very well-established brands, German brands, winning against German brands. This was at the late 80s, early 90s, creating a new brand from scratch and also leveraging on customer touchpoint with an excellent customer service. So all of this is an example of some less well-known core competencies of Toyota. So what can we use? What tool can we use to analyze this? The tool is the value chain. The value chain is a framework which you can use specifically for pipeline business models. What is a pipeline business model? Pipeline business model is a business model that is arranged following a pipe. Typical example is manufacturing. Car maker is a pipeline business model. So here you can see this pipeline in this light with inbound logistics, your operations, your outbound logistics, so how you ship the product to your distributors, the marketing and sales, and the service. It clearly looks like a pipe with some activities done with suppliers, some activities done internally, some activities done with distributors, and then customer relationship, customer service, and so on. So this is the concept of a value chain, the string of activities moving a product from raw material stage through manufacturing and distribution and ultimately to the end users. In the value chain, help us understand opportunities, help understand the profit formula, help us understand whether a new business model can emerge. But then again, the value chain, which was originally defined by Michael Porter, so is a very good framework which you can apply to pipeline business models. So you can do a value chain analysis of Toyota. You can do a value chain analysis of consumer electronic producer. You can't do a value chain analysis of a platform. You can't do a value chain analysis of Amazon or Alibaba or Lazada or Uber or Airbnb because they are not pipeline business models. So this is a very important key learning outcome to take home. Value chain analysis can match with a pipeline business model, doesn't really match with a platform business model because it's just a different way of orchestrating, creating your venture, creating your profit formula, and so on. So the value chain differentiates between the primary activities, and this is exactly the typical representation, the typical visualization of a chain. So as we said, from raw material with inbound logistics, moving on into our own operation, outbound logistics, which is to send the products to our distribution system, and then marketing, sales, and finally customer service. So these are the primary activities of an organization, and then support activities. So support activities will include the infrastructure of a firm, for example, finance, for example, legal, or the administration, that will be firm infrastructure, HRM, human resource management, capital, human capital of your organization, technology development, so your R&D efforts and capabilities, and finally procurement, so like all supply chain management. So the value chain differentiate between these primary and secondary activities, primary or support activities, in what the value chain helps us understand is how we create value and where do we create value. So some companies create value in the primary activities. Some other companies create value in support activities. Or there are cases of companies creating value in both. So by using the value chain analysis, and here you can find a typical representation of a value chain analysis, so we are able to fully understand and fully identify how we create value, how our profit formula works, and where is the margin for your business. To conclude, you can also see here an example of a value chain for a pipeline business. So this is how you can compile your value chain analysis to understand where a company creates value. So let me recap the main points that we learned in this video lecture. So first, we learn about, generally speaking, business model. We learn about the customer value proposition, the profit formula, the key resources and key processes. These are the foundational principles of a business model. These should be known as the alphabet. You should know this perfectly because really helps you tell your story, tell why and how you created a venture through a business model. What else we studied today? We studied about business model innovation, so how we can create new innovation through business models. We also studied about the value chain analysis. The value chain analysis, which is a framework originally created by Michael Porter to identify in pipeline business models how we create value and how we create margin for our profit formula. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye!